A Swiftly Tilting Planet is a science fiction novel by Madeleine L'Engle, the third book in the Time Quintet. The book's title is an allusion to the poem Morning Song of Senlin by Conrad Aiken. Plot summary: the book opens on Thanksgiving evening, 10 years after the events of A Wind in the Door. Meg is now married to Calvin and is expecting their first child. Calvin has become a scientist and is in Britain at a conference. And Meg's family is joined for Thanksgiving dinner by Calvin's mother, Brannon Maddox O'Keefe. When they receive the news of impending nuclear war caused by the dictator Mad Dog Bronzillo, Mrs. O'Keefe lays a charge on Charles Wallace to prevent the disaster by means of Patrick's rune, a rhyming prayer of protection inherited from her Irish grandmother. Charles Wallace goes to the Star-Watching Rock, a family haunt, where his recitation summons a winged unicorn named Gordia, who explains to Charles Wallace that he must prevent nuclear war by traveling through time and telepathically merging with people who lived in the locale of the Star-Watching Rock at points in the past. They are threatened along the way by the Ecthroi, the antagonists introduced in A Wind in the Door, who now seek to alter history in their favor. Gordia and Charles Wallace's travels bring them to Hassels, a Native American boy at least 1,000 years in the past. Maddox of Wales, a pre-Columbian transoceanic traveller. Brandon Lorkie, a Welsh settler in Puritan times. Mrs. O'Keefe's brother Chuck Maddox, during their childhood. And Matthew Maddox, a writer during the American Civil War. Throughout their journey, Meg connects with Charles Wallace from home through kithing, the telepathic communication she learned in A Wind in the Door. Gradually, it is revealed that Bronzillo is a descendant of Maddox through all Charles' other alter egos, and of Maddox's treacherous brother Gwydir. And ultimately, Charles' manipulation of Bronzillo's various ancestors, results in the reunion of Maddox's line, and the transformation of the present Bronzillo into an advocate of peace, to prevent the war. St. Patrick's rune equals, throughout the story, this poem is invoked by Charles Wallace through the personalities he inhabits, to ensure the victory of good. The poem features in several parts of the book, each with slightly different wording or different punctuation. The poem's definite composition is unsure. At Tara in this fateful hour, I place all heaven with its power, and the sun with its brightness, and the snow with its whiteness, and the fire with all the strength it hath, and the lightning with its rapid wrath, and the wind with its swiftness along its path, and the sea with its deepness, and the rocks with their steepness, and the earth with its darkness, all these I place, by God's almighty help and grace, between myself and the powers of darkness. Sources: the background story of Maddox and his brother Gwydir derived from a legend by which Maddox arrived in North America centuries before Leif Erikson and settled with the people there, eventually giving rise to a Welsh-speaking native tribe with some Caucasian features. Although the legend is generally centered on Georgia, along the Ohio River and elsewhere, L'Engle places Maddox and his genetic line in Connecticut, and places his descendants among a historical Welsh colony in Patagonia. The verse given as Patrick's rune is L'Engle's adaptation of an authentic medieval prayer, St. Patrick's Breastplate, which in turn is a variation on the lorica of St. Patrick. L'Engle's rune invokes the same natural phenomena as the fourth verse of the hymn St. Patrick's Breastplate, attributed to St. Patrick, translated by Cecil Francis Alexander, according to the hymnal used by the Episcopal Church, of which L'Engle was a member. The Horn of Joy Matthew Maddox's second novel, The Horn of Joy, serves as a MacGuffin in A Swiftly Tilting Planet. Charles Wallace spends a significant portion of the book trying to remember or discover what Maddox wrote in it, or to reach Maddox himself. Readers sometimes wonder whether the Horn of Joy ever existed. But it is a fictional book, created by L'Engle. Polly O'Keefe finds a copy of The Horn of Joy in her room when she visits her grandparents in an acceptable time. Maddox's equally fictional first novel, Once More United, is said to have been published in 1865. Vaspusia Vaspusia is the same fictional country that L'Engle's character Vicky Austin later visits in Troubling a Star. L'Engle explains in Walking on Water that Vaspusia is set in the middle of what used to be called Patagonia, a sizable area along what are now the boundaries of Chile and Argentina. L'Engle's husband, Hugh Franklin, is credited with having named Vaspusia. Series This is the third book of the Time Quintet, preceded by, in publication order, A Wrinkle in Time and A Wind in the Door. However, this was not the chronological order. Though Many Waters was written and published later than A Swiftly Tilting Planet, it takes place earlier with respect to the characters. The last book in the quintet, An Acceptable Time, takes place a generation after A Swiftly Tilting Planet, and is part of the Polly O'Keefe series of books. The larger Murray O'Keefe series contains 3 novels between A Swiftly Tilting Planet and An Acceptable Time in terms of character chronology. These are The Arm of the Starfish, Dragons in the Waters, and A House Like a Lotus. Audio adaptation. In January 2012, an audio CD version narrated by actress Jennifer Ehle was released. Awards and honors. In its first paperback edition, A Swiftly Tilting Planet won a National Book Award in category Children's Books. Notes. References. External links. L'Engle's official site, A Wrinkle in Time Quintet excerpts, Swiftly Tilting Planet.